Today I'm bringing 4 of the most comforting bakes together in one beautiful video. Soft, pillowy dinner rolls, golden fluffy donuts, warm, pull-apart cheesy garlic bread, and a rich cheesy garlic focaccia. Every moment fills the kitchen with warmth, butter, and that incredible smell of fresh bread. So let's get started. These rolls are truly effortless to make. No complicated hand kneading, no machine kneading at all. Just a simple lift and fold method. And the result? Perfectly soft, buttery rolls without any struggle. So first, let's get our yeast mixture ready. Now grab a medium-sized bowl and pour in the milk. This milk has been sitting at room temperature for a while, perfect for our recipe. Now add sugar, about 3 tablespoons. Before starting, always bring cold ingredients, like milk and eggs, to room temperature. It makes a big difference in how your dough rises. Now it's time for yeast. Today I'm using instant dry yeast, so there's no need for warm milk for yeast active. If you're using active dry yeast, always use warm milk to activate it. But be careful. If the milk is too hot, it can kill the yeast. So if that happens, let it cool a bit before adding. Once you add the yeast, give everything a gentle stir. Give it a little mix until the sugar starts to dissolve. Now comes the milk powder. If you're using active dry yeast, first activate it completely, then add milk powder later. But since we're using instant yeast, we can add it right away. Milk powder adds gentle sweetness and a rich milky flavor. It gives that extra buttery taste, even if no butter is added. That's why I always use it for homemade breads. Add the milk powder and whisk until it's well dissolved. Next, it's egg time. I'm using 2 medium-sized eggs, about 60 grams each. If you prefer an eggless version, just skip the eggs and replace them with the same amount of milk, about 120 grams total. That will keep the dough perfectly balanced. Now mix everything well until smooth and creamy, and keep it aside for a while. See, till now, nothing complicated at all. Just simple steps, smooth and easy. All right, let's get the flour ready. I'm using bread flour, but if you don't have it, no worries. You can easily use all-purpose flour instead. For this recipe, we'll need 800 grams. That's roughly 28.2 ounces. Sift the flour first. Sifting doesn't make a huge difference in texture, but it keeps the flour airy and helps remove any unwanted particles. Once sifting is done, add salt and give it a quick mix to combine everything evenly. So our yeast mixture and flour are ready. Now let's bring them together. Pour the liquid mixture into the flour and start combining everything slowly. At first it will feel a little sticky, a bit saggy, and that's completely fine. We're not kneading this dough, so it needs that extra moisture. If you prefer to knead by hand or with a mixer, that's perfectly fine too. But I like keeping things simple, no struggle, just easy and relaxing. You can see here, the dough looks sticky, right? We actually need this texture, slightly softer and a little sticky. That's what makes these rolls light and fluffy. Once everything is combined, now it's time to add butter. Here I'm using melted butter. It blends more easily into the dough. If you plan to knead the dough by hand or in a mixer, you can use soft room temperature butter instead. It'll help the dough look smoother while kneading. Now mix the butter until everything comes together into a soft dough. If your dough looks too firm or dry, Add just a little more milk at a time to get that soft, hydrated texture. You don't need to knead, just grab the dough and gently fold it toward the center of the bowl. This lift and fold movement helps the dough develop gluten naturally. That's why the dough should always be a bit softer than normal, so it stretches easily and builds structure on its own. Once done, cover the bowl and let it rest for 1 hour. During this rest, the dough hydrates beautifully, becomes smoother, and will be much easier to handle later. After 1 hour, wet your hand slightly with water. Now start your first lift and fold again. Just grab the dough and fold. Repeat this a few times. This recipe needs slightly softer dough because we only use folding, no kneading. That's why hydration is key here. Once done, cover again and rest for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, come back and repeat the same method one more time. If the dough feels a little firm, just wet your fingers with a touch of water. It'll make folding easier. Now cover again and leave it for the final 30-minute rest. Once your dough has risen and looks airy, punch it down gently to release the air. Now divide the dough into equal pieces. I like using a kitchen scale here. It helps to keep all the rolls the same size so they look neat and bake evenly. Depending on your baking tray, divide and portion accordingly. Tighter rolls will give you fluffier, more uniform results. So take your time shaping. Don't flour the surface and use a clean countertop instead. You actually want a little stickiness. It helps create surface tension, giving the rolls a smooth, rounded top. And place them on a greased or parchment-lined baking tray. You can place them close together so they bake into each other, creating those soft, pull-apart rolls. Cover and let them proof again for 30 to 45 minutes, or until they're beautifully puffed up. While the rolls are proofing, preheat your oven to 170 degrees Celsius, 340 degrees Fahrenheit. Now make your egg wash. Combine 1 egg yolk with some milk and mix until smooth. Brush the tops gently. Be soft, not heavy-handed. You just want a thin, even coat. Look at that. Even before baking, the rolls already look glossy and beautiful. Now bake for 20 to 22 minutes until they're perfectly golden on top. Once baked, remove from the oven and let them cool slightly. While still warm, brush the tops with melted butter. This gives that beautiful shine and keeps the crust extra soft. And that's it. Your dinner rolls are ready to enjoy. Golden, buttery, and soft as clouds, all without kneading. These dinner rolls are perfect for any meal. I'm sure they'll be a hit at your home too. If you try this recipe, I'd love to see how yours turn out. Share your results in the comments. You know, these donuts look so good after proofing, soft, round, and just perfect. Today, I'll explain everything in an easy, simple way, so you understand every single detail. And if you have any doubts, just ask in the comments. I always reply. This recipe is eggless, but don't worry. I'll also tell you how to make the egg version. So, let's start with the liquid. we need 300 milliliters of milk. I'm using instant dry yeast today, so I don't need to activate it first. Just cold milk straight from the fridge. Even though it's summer, cold milk is perfect for kneading. It keeps the dough soft and stops it from overheating. But if you're using active dry yeast, then warm the milk slightly and activate the yeast first. Now add 2 tablespoons of sugar. We don't need sugar to activate yeast, but it definitely makes the whole process smoother, and it makes the donuts taste better too. Then add the yeast, 1.5 teaspoons, around 4.5 grams. And if you want to add an egg in this recipe, just add 1 egg and reduce the milk by the same amount. Simple, right? Next, I'm adding milk powder. This is completely optional, but it really makes your donuts richer and more flavorful. Try it once. You'll feel the difference. If you don't have milk powder, just skip it. Give everything a good mix and set it aside for a moment while we prepare the flour. I'm using bread flour today, about 12% protein. For soft, smooth donuts, bread flour is always my first choice. But if you don't have it, all-purpose flour works beautifully too. Just remember, while kneading, adjust the liquid slightly because every flour absorbs differently depending on the protein level. Here, I'm using 400 grams of flour. That's about 14.1 ounces. Sift the flour and add a little salt. Sifting doesn't make a huge difference, but it helps remove any unwanted particles and keeps the flour nice and airy. Now we're ready to mix everything and start kneading. Today, I'm using a dough kneading machine, but if you don't have one, don't worry. You can knead by hand, and your donuts will still come out perfect every single time. Start on a low speed, number 1 or 2, and add the liquid slowly. Adding it little by little gives you control, and it makes the whole mixing process so easy. If you bake regularly, you already know your flour. You can add the liquid directly. Here, I'm keeping a little milk aside so we can adjust the texture properly. After about 2 minutes of mixing, stop and check the dough. This is the moment where we fix the texture. Right now, the dough looks good, but it's not as soft as we need. For donuts, we always want slightly soft dough, so I'll add remaining milk. And remember, every flour absorbs differently. If your dough becomes too soft, just add 1 or 2 tablespoons of flour and fix it. This small adjustment is the key to getting soft donuts every time. You can see here, once I add the remaining milk, the dough becomes much softer. Now continue kneading for another 4 to 5 minutes. If you're kneading by hand, the process is the same. First combine everything, adjust the dough texture, and then continue kneading. Just never make hard, stiff dough. As you knead, gluten develops and the dough becomes smoother and more elastic. Now let's add the soft butter. Make sure your butter is really soft, not cold, because it blends so much better. And don't worry if the dough looks a bit saggy after adding butter. That's normal. It will come together beautifully. After about 5 minutes, let's check the dough again. It looks better now and smoother, but we need it even silkier. So let's knead for another 5 to 7 minutes. Kneading time always depends on your machine, but usually around 15 minutes is enough. Just keep checking the dough and adjust the texture if needed. One important tip, if it's summer and your dough starts overheating, just stop the mixer and keep the dough in the fridge for 15 minutes. And always knead on low to medium speed, between 2 and 4. Never high speed. High speed heats the dough too quickly. Look at this. The dough is soft, smooth, and almost shiny. This is exactly what we want. Perfect dough is smooth, stretchy, and passes the window pane test when you gently pull it. Our dough is ready. Let's divide it. And remember, for this recipe we only do 1 proofing. Now it's time to divide the dough into equal portions. I'm dividing mine into 50 grams each, but you can make them bigger or smaller. Totally your choice. I always use a kitchen scale. It keeps everything even, and the donuts fry beautifully. Take one piece, press it gently to release the air, and shape it into a smooth ball. Make sure there are no cracks. A smooth ball gives a smooth donut. Once you roll all of them, lightly flour each dough ball and arrange them on the tray. And let them rest for 15 to 20 minutes. They'll relax, soften, and expand slightly, which makes shaping easier. After resting, let's shape them. Gently press each dough ball to release a bit of gas. And make a small hole in the center. Here I am using a small donuts cutter, but you can just use your finger if you don't have small cutter. And there it is, that classic donut shape. Place all the shaped donuts on a tray and let them proof. Always remember, proofing time always varies. In summer, 1 hour is usually enough. In winter, it may take up to 2 hours. But don't depend on time alone. Always check the dough. Gently press the edge. If it springs back slowly, it's ready. If it's overproofed, it will collapse during frying and turn soggy, so be careful with this step. When your donuts are almost ready, heat your oil to 150 degrees Celsius to 160 degrees Celsius. Don't go higher. Medium heat gives that soft, fluffy inside. Now gently place the donuts into the oil and fry for 2 to 3 minutes, flipping halfway. Let them cook slowly. Don't rush. Slow frying creates that bakery-style texture. Once they're done, let them cool completely. We need cool donuts for glazing, otherwise the glaze will melt and disappear. While they cool, let's make the glaze. In a bowl, add some icing sugar and a little milk. You can adjust the milk depending on how thick or thin you want the glaze. Add some vanilla extract for extra flavor and whisk until it becomes smooth, shiny, and silky. When your donuts are fully cool, dip them gently into the glaze. And that's it. Soft, pillowy donuts with a beautiful, shiny finish. So, how was the recipe? If you want more donut recipes, check out my donut playlist. There are so many you'll love. You know, I've made garlic butter and even basil pesto focaccia. You can check those on my channel. So, in this recipe, I'm using 500 grams of bread flour, around 12% protein. This type of flour gives structure to your dough and helps it hold those beautiful, big bubbles. Now, I'm using the same amount of water, 500 grams. Get a big mixing bowl and pour in the water. I'm using normal tap water here. But if you're using active dry yeast, Just make it slightly lukewarm. That helps activate the yeast faster. Then a little instant dry yeast. Here, I don't need warm water this time. Easy, right? Next, add some salt. I'm using salt flakes here. Now, of course, some extra virgin olive oil and 1 tablespoon of honey. This adds a gentle balance to the flavor. Give it a good mix until the salt dissolves completely. You want that salt to blend thoroughly into the water before adding flour. Now combine the flour with your yeast mixture. Start mixing it all together. At first it'll look shaggy, soft and sticky, and that's exactly what we want. Don't panic. This is normal. Focaccia dough is high hydration. That's what gives it those airy bubbles. If this high hydration dough feels tricky to handle, just reduce the water slightly. Use 400 or 450 grams instead of 500. It'll still turn out amazing. Now let's talk about my favorite part, the stretch and fold technique. We'll do this 3 times in total. It's my favorite way to build strength without kneading. Once everything is mixed, scrape down the bowl, cover it, and let it rest for 1 hour. This rest allows the flour to absorb all the water and fully hydrate. After 1 hour, just look at this. The dough has come to life, soft, bubbly, and hydrated. Now, wet your hand slightly to stop sticking and start the first round of stretch and fold. You can see here, the dough is hydrated, but the gluten hasn't developed yet, so it tears a little. That's okay. Take one side, lift it up, stretch, and fold it to the opposite side of the bowl. Rotate the bowl a quarter turn and repeat. This simple movement slowly strengthens the gluten and helps form those beautiful air pockets we all love in focaccia. Once you're done, cover it again and let it rest for 30 minutes before your next stretch and fold. Now let's do the second round stretch and fold. Each fold makes a difference. You'll notice the dough becoming smoother, stronger, and more elastic. You know, we'll be doing a total of 3 series of stretch and folds. The entire process takes about 3 hours, but your actual hands-on time, just 2 to 3 minutes each time. That's not hard, right? Once that's done, cover the bowl and let the dough rest again. While the dough is resting, let's get our garlic mixture ready. Here I'm using 1 whole bulb of garlic, around 8 to 10 cloves. Grab a grater and start grating it finely. Now add some chopped fresh parsley. Then some extra virgin olive oil. A little salt and black pepper. Mix everything together. This will be our aromatic garlic topping later. If you prefer a softer, milder flavor, you can make garlic confit instead. Just cook the garlic gently in oil until soft. If you'd like to see how I make that, I've already shared the full method in my garlic butter focaccia video. You can check it out on my channel. Now let's check on our dough. Look at this. Each fold gently strengthens the gluten, helping it trap air better, and that's what creates those beautiful open bubbles later on. As you lift and fold, you'll notice it stretching easily, almost silky. That's a very good sign. It means the dough is building strength without being overworked. After your 3rd series of stretch and folds, you now have 2 options. You can cover the dough and place it in the fridge overnight, which I highly recommend because it develops even more flavor and makes the dough much easier to handle later. But today, I'll set the dough aside for just 30 minutes. Now it's time to prepare the tray. If your tray isn't non-stick, line it with parchment paper. Otherwise, the focaccia will stick. Now drizzle in plenty of olive oil and spread it evenly across the surface. Carefully transfer the dough into the tray. Just ease it in slowly and spread it out lightly with your hands. Once you've spread the dough, put some of that garlic parsley mixture all over the top. Then fold the dough gently over itself. And flip it carefully so the garlic mixture ends up underneath. This helps the flavor infuse right into the dough as it proofs. Now cover it up and let it rest for proofing, about 1 hour or more, depending on your kitchen temperature. But be careful not to overproof. If the dough rises too much, it might collapse when you start dimpling. Before you begin dimpling, preheat your oven to 230 degrees Celsius, that's about 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Now drizzle more olive oil over the top. I'm using the same garlic parsley flavored oil here. Rub a little onto your hands too. It's time for dimpling. Using all your fingers, press into the dough across the entire surface. Push down firmly until your fingers touch the pan. Once dimpling is done, add a little more garlic parsley mixture and then top it generously with cheese. Now bake it in the oven for about 18 minutes. Look at this. The cheese is melting, the top is turning golden, and the aroma is absolutely irresistible. Once it's done, take it out of the oven and sprinkle some shredded cheese along with a bit more of that garlic parsley mixture on top. Now bake again for another 5 to 7 minutes until the cheese melts beautifully. Now look at this focaccia. The smell is incredible. While it's still hot, brush a little more garlic oil over the top. The combination of garlic and cheese, it's truly something special. The outside is slightly crispy, the inside soft, fluffy, and full of cheese. Every bite is loaded with garlic flavor and pure happiness. So how was the recipe? I hope you loved it. If yes, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. This bread, it fits for everyone and anytime, and that I know. So let's start from the beginning. First, we're cooking the garlic, because that's where all the flavor comes from. Here I've got about 200 grams of peeled garlic. Now just put all the garlic into a small pan and pour enough oil to completely cover it. Then cover the pan and cook on low to medium heat, not high. We want it soft, not fried or burnt. While the garlic's cooking, let's activate the yeast. Today, I'm using active dry yeast, so I need to activate it first. Here I've got 1 cup. That's about 250 milliliters of milk. Warm it up in the microwave for about 45 seconds to 1 minute. Make sure it's just warm, not hot. Now pour it into a small bowl. Add some sugar. Then about 1½ teaspoons of yeast. Give it a nice mix and set it aside for a while until it gets nice and foamy. While the yeast is working, let's check our garlic. Look at that. Perfectly cooking, slow and gentle. Let it go for another 15 minutes or so until the cloves turn soft. All right, now let's move to the flour. I'm using 400 grams of bread flour. That's around 14.1 ounces. Always weigh your flour. It really makes a difference. Now sift it well and add half a teaspoon of salt and give it a good mix. Then just keep it aside, because our garlic is almost done. Look at this. Beautifully cooked, soft, and full of flavor. Let it cool down, then blend it later into a smooth garlic paste. Now let's look at the yeast. See that foam? That's exactly what we want. Perfectly activated. If your yeast doesn't activate, there might be a few reasons. The milk could be too hot or too cold, or maybe your yeast is expired, or it's been sitting open for too long. Now, into that yeast mixture, crack in 1 egg and whisk until it's smooth and well combined. Now, slowly pour that yeast mixture into the flour and start mixing. You can use a dough whisk or just your hand. As you mix, feel the dough. If it looks too soft, add a little flour. If it feels too hard, splash in a bit more milk. It's better to adjust now. It'll make things much easier later. You can see here. This is the kind of texture we're looking for. Once everything comes together, it's time to knead. A little workout time. Today, I'm kneading by hand, but if you have a dough kneading machine, go for it. Start on low speed, just to combine everything, then slowly increase to a low-medium speed, around 3 or 4. It'll slowly turn soft and smooth. Push, fold, turn, and repeat. If you feel tired, take a short break, and continue again. After about 4 to 5 minutes, it already starts feeling nice. Now, add your soft butter. This butter is what makes our dough silky and rich. It gives that beautiful texture. Keep kneading. How long? Well, depends on how strong you are. Usually around 12 to 15 minutes by hand. That's perfect. Once the dough feels smooth and elastic, stretch a small piece and check. If it stretches thin without tearing, you've nailed it. That's the window pane test. Now, let's rest the dough for 1 hour and let it rise. If it's winter and your kitchen's cold, just turn on your oven for a minute, then turn it off, and place the dough inside to rise in that gentle warmth. If you leave it out on the counter, it might take a long time. While the dough is rising, let's make our garlic butter. Take your cooked garlic and put it into a blender. Add a little garlic oil. That helps it blend smoothly. Now add some chopped parsley. A teaspoon of chili flakes if you like it spicy. Salt to taste. And a bit of black pepper. Finally, add some soft butter. Make sure it's soft, because that will blend easily and make the mixture creamy. Now, blend it up just the way you like it. If you prefer it smoother, blend a little longer. I like it with a bit of texture. Not too fine, not too chunky. Perfect for spreading later. All right, just look at this dough. Soft, pillowy, and full of air bubbles. Beautiful, right? Now it's time for a little punching, just to release that air. Transfer it to your workbench and we're ready to roll. Grab your rolling pin and gently roll it out. Not too thin, just smooth and even. We want every bite to have that perfect balance of garlic, butter, and cheese. Now spread that rich garlicky butter all over. No empty spots allowed. Make sure every inch is covered. This is what gives that deep, irresistible flavor. And of course, cheese. You know I love adding more. What about you? I think you do too. Today, I'll show you 2 ways to make this bread. First one, roll and cut. Second, our favorite pull-apart style. For the first one, once you've spread the garlic butter and cheese, roll the dough gently, but not loose. Then cut it into even pieces and arrange them in your baking pan. Now, cover and let it proof for 45 minutes to 1 hour. While it's proofing, preheat your oven to 180 degrees Celsius or 360 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it's beautifully risen, bake for about 30 minutes, and your kitchen will smell absolutely amazing. Now let's do the second one, the pull-apart one. Once you've spread the cheese, cut the dough into even smaller squares, just about the same size as your baking pan. Now stack them, one on top of another. Arrange them neatly into your mold, like little layers. Cover it and let it proof again. Once it's done, brush a gentle layer of egg wash on top. That's what gives that golden, glossy finish after baking. Now into the oven it goes. 30 minutes of patience, and soon your kitchen will smell like pure heaven. Just look at this masterpiece. Golden and crispy on the outside, soft and fluffy on the inside, with that melted garlic butter hiding in every single layer. This is the kind of cheesy garlic bread that makes you forget everything else. That first bite, buttery, garlicky, cheesy, absolute perfection. So, how's the recipe? You like it, right? I know you do. If you enjoyed it, give a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family who love cheesy garlic bread as much as we do. So how were these recipes? If you like them, give a thumbs up and subscribe for more easy and delicious recipes. Until then, enjoy.